Namaste and welcome to Dragonfly Cookery and Knives. This is kind of like the third video on a particular knife that we're introducing during 2020. But what I'm going to be more focusing about regarding this knife is a original knife design that came up probably in the 90s, maybe early 2000, and has really taken off and taken off with a lot of other designers, where each designer's doing their own take on it now. This knife was first, this is a debated issue, and I'm not getting into this debate. I really, at this point in time, this knife design has evolved into so many different styles of knives that I'm going to demonstrate here on this table today, that at this point it's kind of a mute issue who was the first originator of this design. Although, being a designer myself, there is good reason for the original designer to take great pride and ownership of this design. And I respect that and I support that. But I really don't know who the original designer was, and at this point I've heard different sides of the argument, and I remain neutral on it. There is a gentleman by the name of Tom Brown who introduced this design as the tracker, and Tops Knives is the one who has picked up this design, has carried this design for quite a number of years. There's a lot of videos out there on the Tom Brown Trekker produced by Tops Knives that really shows this knife's great function and very good and intelligent design. And it definitely form follows function with this design extremely well. And I have to admit, when I first saw this design, I was on the fence with it. Now, the other possible originator of this design is a guy by the name of Dave Beck, who also came out with a very similar style design. Now, one of the knives that I have on my table here is designed, taken from the Dave Beck WSK design, and has put his own little spin on it, but pretty much keeping it pretty close to the original, is one that Mike Stewart at Bark Rivers Knives has been doing for a few years now. Now, what they do is they do it as a custom knife, in that they only do short runs on them. I picked up my two that I have back in 2015 when they reintroduced it and had done some modifications. And I will talk a little bit more in detail with that, but this one is a good representation of what the Dave Beck design looked like. Now, another one that I'm going to be talking about, and I have on the table here, is a variation of the Tom Brown Trekker that E.J. Snyder came up with. And he's a 25-year veteran, and had served in the Gulf War in 1991, and also in Iraqi Freedom, Operations Iraqi Freedom. So he's a veteran who has experienced combat, and was also on Naked and Afraid. And I believe one of the episodes, the first episodes that he did, the tool that he chose, of course, was a knife, and it ended up failing on him. So when he came back from that, he got together with Tops Knives, and they put their heads together and came up with a design. And he wanted a multi-purpose extreme knife that you could do extreme survival with. And so I will introduce that knife that I have on this table. All of these that I'm talking about so far right now have a similar design feature that is new to, I would say, predominantly new to the 21st century. So it's not one that we've seen prior to this time period. Now, whether it be Tom Brown or Dave Beck being the originator design, I don't know. I'll leave that to you guys to decide. But it is here to stay, and there are a lot of designers that are doing their own spin on it. Now, I introduced a new design that we're going to be featuring on my website at Dragonfly Cookery and Knives, that was designed by Daniel Murray Lake, who's a very good designer. He's a user of knives, so when he designs a knife, he's thinking about how he's going to use it. What's his purpose? And he came up with the Guardian, which is the knife I'm holding here. And this one has some of the similar features in the design that the other knives that I've mentioned. But we're going to focus more on this knife, but we're going to talk about how they relate to all of them. So it'll be kind of a review on all of these knives with this knife, because we're talking about the similar or common design features that they have and how form follows function with their design. And this is very important to understand this design when you see it. How does it work? What is its design purpose? What's its philosophy of use? And is this something that you should consider putting in your kit as part of your backpacking equipment, hunting equipment, survival gear, whatever. So now some of the other companies that I will touch on and show some examples of is Gary Cox, who's a designer, who does his own spin-off of kind of a Copus cookery style, but integrating the same grind features that these other knives share in common. And then iPac, which is owned by, they're an offshoot of CFK Cutlery, and they're a custom cutlery company that's stationed in Oregon. And I think they also have an outlet or one of their places out in Florida, because I buy a lot of their knives, and their knives will come from either of those areas, and you can find them on Amazon. I will give you some price points of what these go for, so you know kind of where they fall in your budget as to whether it's something you should consider adding to your gear or not. And then last but not least, I'm going to talk about Fox Knives and their version where they do a similar but not exact style of grind difference, but I think it's a inspired or spin-off of these. So with that all being said, I'm going to start off with the Bark Rivers. The Bark River Tracker, the one that I purchased, and these are the two that I purchased. One has, they both have, one has a micarta handle, the other one has a G10 handle. Both of them, this one is green and black canvas micarta, and this one is G10 in a gray and black, which is what they call the zebra pattern. Now, they look really cool. Or you might call it the, I think they call it the night tiger pattern, because it kind of resembles a tiger. So it's a beautiful design. This is actually the design that is inspired by Dave Beck's WSK. And the WSK is very similar in its style and shape and size. The only difference is up at the top here, toward the point, there is a swedge. It's not a sharpened swedge, but it is a swedge, giving it more of a prominent point for piercing. The handle scallops on the side here is definitely a Dave Beck inspiration and design that Mike Stewart has implemented in here, giving credit to Dave Beck as the originator. Now, this particular one is made out of A2 tool steel. Mike Stewart says this is a 1/4 inch stock, however, it is a little bit thicker than that. And the design features of this blade is very specific. One is to function in part as an axe, a hand axe, in part as a planer for planing wood, another part for whittling and detail work, and it has a 90-degree spine for throwing sparks off a ferro rod or debarking or creating fuzz in your fire preparation. It is designed as a chopper, as a cutter, as a whittler. It is kind of an all-purpose function tool when it comes to anything that has a cutting edge on it, whether it be, it doesn't function as a saw, and there's nothing on it that has any saw features. It has jimping up here at the top, allowing you to index and get a thumb purchase there, but it's rounded and non-aggressive, so it doesn't harm the thumb. But does give you, it allows you to do some push cuts and good dexterity and control. Now, this particular one, like I said, it has a G10 handle, A2 tool steel. what's unique about the grind, and this is what makes this knife design, whether it be Tom Beck or Tom Brown or Dave Beck. I'm now blending their names. They're both getting credit for this design, and the ingenuity of this design is here to stay. It's a design that we're going to see incorporated in many, many, many knives, and are seeing it in many, many knives in various different forms and features. But I think what's important is that this is very close to the Tom Brown design as well as the Dave Beck design, and it has all the working features that both knives have, with one exception. The Tom Brown Trekker has up here at the top of the spine what looks like saw teeth. And they're very thick and fat and sturdy. They're not really true saw teeth in the sense of sawing all the way through a material. It is to saw to notch. It's for the purpose of notching. You can also use the little space in between, and I'll show that with another Tops knife that's on this table, and how you can use it to take a pot by its handle with your knife off the fire, where you're not endangering yourself by being burned by steam or hot water or liquid spilling over on you. So there's a lot of design purpose and form follows function that works out very, very well in this. Now, this one has a lot of the same features that the original two designers intended. This one has a saber grind, or a higher Scandi grind with a convex edge with a nice belly point for chopping. It is to be used like a hand axe. So you can chop through, you can split your wood with it the way that Mike Stewart intended, without any texturing up here. You have a 90-degree spine, but it allows you to baton from the front or right here in this curved area, as what the intended design from the designer intended, Dave Beck and Tom Brown. This is a straight edge. This particular one, like Dave Beck's, has a hollow forge, which allows you to get in there and be able to strike it and split the wood right through. It's a higher grind than the Scandi grind in the front, but hollow forged. Now, the reason why it's straight is so that it can be used for planing wood, for creating a bow, or if you're going to start making a spoon, or you're going to make another tool from wood at your campsite. You get definitely playing with this. That's a design intent. Another design intent is right here in this little upsweep that's sharp all the way to this point. And that is so that you can, and I'm going to use a piece of wood here as my support, and that is so that you can do feather sticks. And you can hold it this way if you don't like, point it towards yourself and draw your material down to create your sticks, your feathers. Now, I'm not real proficient using it because I don't use it that often to where I create my feather sticks that way. For me, it still is more, it's just muscle memory and better dexterity for me to create feather sticks by doing it this way with push cuts and bringing my material, this way. Another way you can take it, and I've seen people do, is they hold the knife up closer and they bring it this way towards them. Now, some people don't feel comfortable with that. They feel it's a little bit dangerous, especially if you slip and you end up hitting one of your fingers. It's sharp enough to take a finger right off its knuckle. So you want to be very careful when you're doing this, but if you're used to your tool with your muscle memory, you know how hard to pull and how far to go and when to stop. So it's a technique that with practice you will be able to do very well, and that's for that part right there for feathering. So design follows function. Chopping, doing plain cuts or straight cuts, you can do fine whittling tasks here, and here you can do your feather sticks. So, and 90-degree spine for doing fuzzes. I almost put my thumb right on top of the cutting edge. That would have been nice. You got the scalloping on the handle for your hand allows you to change your position on it for up and close where the balance point is, okay? So you can do your whittling and not feel like it's too heavy either way, have good balance and good control. Or you can choke back, use it for chopping at various different areas. You have a swell, a nice palm swell that fits it in your hand comfortably with great ergonomics, and a swell at the back to hold this knife in your hand even when you're doing extended leverage chopping. It still stays in there. If you're still worried about it, you have a lanyard hole where you can fit a lanyard through it. Now this is a very intelligent, very well thought out design. Every feature that you see on this knife has a true form follows function, and it does function its task as the way that the designer intended it. Whether it be Mike Stewart with Bark Rivers with the Tracker, or with WSK with David Beck, or Tom Brown's Tracker produced by Tops Knives. They all have that same feature and they work. I don't have a Tom Brown's Tracker, so I'm only seeing basing upon what I've seen others do with it. But these other knives I have used, like this one, and I can say they work. Now this comes with a high quality leather scabbard. You can put you can carry it with a boulderick that you can fasten to the loops and carry it on your side, which is the recommended way, I think. Or it comes with a dangler that does allow it to pivot and move out of the way when you're sitting down with the knife. Has a great retention strap, good high quality leather, thick leather, well stitched, and I like how Mike always thinks about keeping this out of the way of the business end of the knife so you're not cutting your strap. That strap is there for a reason, because if you don't have it snapped, it could slide right out. But very, very good, very high quality. Now what does this sell for? When they are released, like when in 2015 they came out with 120 of these, they were selling anywhere between $280 on up to $400 depending upon the handle material. So they can be a bit pricey. They are a custom knife. They're short run. You get your hands on them, they're a good collectible item as well as a very useful tool. And so it's worth the investment for those reasons. Now the next one I'm going to talk about that's similar in its design is also put out by Tops Knives. It is designed by it is designed by E.J. Snyder. This is called the Skull Crusher Extreme, and this is the guy I'm talking about. Has 25 years experience as a soldier, has seen combat, went on Naked and Afraid, had a knife fail on him, came back to the designers and designed this blade. Now, you're going to say, wait a minute, that just looks like a Tom Brown Tracker on steroids. And basically, it is in many ways, but also in many ways, it is quite different. It does handle and function a little differently, but it has a lot of the similar characteristics. And this is why I'm saying this design is here to stay. They're taking that design that Tom Brown and Dave Beck designed originally, and now they are adding to it. They're doing their own creative take on it. So this one has your saber grind all the way. Same saber grind, goes up the same level. This one may be a little bit higher right here. It is straight for the purpose of your plane cuts. You have your curve here that's sharpened right to this point here that can be used for doing your feather sticks. Another thing in a martial arts technique, and also as a weapon, you come down on somebody this way and you pull this way with it on their arm or any other limb. You have this cutting area, this tip digging in, and your belly coming through that will do a very large and lethal slice. So it is, as a weapon, it is a very formidable and useful um, survival tool in a combat situation. But that's not. Please keep in mind that a knife, its original design is as a tool, as a survival tool, and his purpose is for extreme survival. On Top's website, there's two quotes that I'm going to read to you. An extreme tool for any extreme job. And that's very well descriptive of what this knife is. Another one is, why play in the wild when you can dominate it? And that's E.J. Snyder all the way right there. Because his purpose with this tool is you want to dominate your situation. You want to have complete control over your situation that you find yourself in. That's what extreme survival is all about. That domination, taking control, and staying in control of very fluid and difficult task at hand. So this is definitely follows that form follows function very well. Now there's a slight swedge. It does have a slight clip point that drops down. You have a very strong and prominent curve and very good belly, very large belly area for chopping. You have your straight area for playing, the curve here for your doing your feather sticks. You have this saw right here at the back, not up at the front, which allows for your notching, and it is quite aggressive and useful and functions very well in creating a 1/4-inch notch, the absolute width or thickness of this blade, which is a 1/4 inch. It's 1095 high carbon steel with the traction coating, black micarta handles with red spacers. This one has the Rocky Mountain texturing, so it's real grippy. It stays in your hand. I've used this quite a bit, and I don't get any hot spots whatsoever with this, and I find it very comfortable to use and very intuitive to use. You know, when you really want to get some leverage in this chopping area, you can choke back on this and really, that weight will bring it forward and impact your material and do what it's designed to do. So very intelligently done. The scales are able to be taken off. You can lash it to a pull because you have these lashing points. You have a skull-crushing pommel that's very pointed. It almost looks like a screwdriver with a point instead of a flat edge. It's beveled down that way. So its impact take will definitely do damage. It's not made for pounding in steaks. You probably could break a nut with it, but it's going to go every which way. I like to think of it as a glass breaker to get in or out of a vehicle that maybe have been in a collision and you need to extract a victim. And that's how I would see using this, because you definitely could use this as an impact tool. You could probably even use it in prying. But very, very good. Form follows function very, very well, and it comes with the traditional style Tops style scabbard, but they've made some improvements on it that makes it, I like it better. And that is, instead of just Velcro straps, they put the Velcro straps with the snap. It is completely MOLLE compatible. You have the plastic insert to keep the blade from cutting through your Kedora. However, I would like to see them put a plastic insert that is not formed to the knife, because you still get rattle, so you're not preventing anything by doing it to the profile of the blade. And then it could be truly ambidextrous, and a lefty or righty could carry this and change the orientation of the carry of the knife in the belt, if they're carrying this on their side. But it's MOLLE compatible on the back, so you can hang it any which way on your pack, whether it be down or up. And it comes with a good pouch with good locking system and elastic, so if this should break and fail, you still can keep your stuff in there securely. So it's very well thought out, very good design, and of course, as all Tops knives do, it comes with a whistle that is functional and can be heard at a great distance. So if you are in an emergency situation where you're lost out in the woods, or someplace where you can't easily get out of, and you're stuck there because the weather changed on you, whatever, and if you are injured, You could use this whistle to blow for help, and you could survive with this knife in an extreme way. So it lives up to its name very well. Now, showing that design, I'm going to now talk about Daniel's design. Now, Daniel will be the first to tell you this is not a kukri, even though most of the designs he has are based off of kukris. And I would say this is based, but is not a kukri. It's based off of kukri. You have a very nice curve to it, which a kukri has. You have, with that curve, allows for very good belly for chopping, which a kukri has. What changes is you have a different type of recurve. It's not a recurve that goes all the way to the back here. It's a short recurve that goes almost to a straight edge right here. That purpose, again, it's small. It's not wide for the draw cut, but you could do a draw cut on a smaller piece of wood. Let's say I wanted to draw this on this wood to flatten it to make a base for a bow drill. And then I can use the point or use the chalk mark that it comes with that I will show you to do your notch or your divot to put your stick in for friction heat. Now this is a prototype, so the brass pin that you see there will go away like I've mentioned in the other videos, and it will be a divot that will allow you at the balance point of your blade to have that stick there and be able to do your bow drill and hold it very securely. So everything about this is going to have form follows function right to the T. It already does. That part was supposed to be in there. The Kami who made this didn't quite understand that. It's not something that he sees or puts in a knife every day. So he now understands it, and we're going to have it in the future rollout of this blade once it goes into production. Now this one has a finger choil right at the balance point, which allows for it to be used for the whittling with great control and balance. It also allows for good dexterity because part of this tool is to be a kitchen aid in the field. So when you're at campsite and you've got your food, maybe did some hunting, you have your game, you can prepare your game for your meal. Skinning it, this is great because you've got nice curve here. It's a drop point. It comes almost to a spear point, not quite a spear point because it's not centered, but it's a drop point with a very nice belly, and that belly will allow you to get in and do skinning on large game like an elk or a moose. But it also will function in processing your meats and your vegetables for your meal as you prepare for it. Now in the first video that I introduced this knife, I did a demonstration where we slice some tomato and we slice some onion, which was it made paper cut slices. So it does an extremely good job, and you have great control, great dexterity for doing your kitchen work. I like to index the spine, and with this finger choil and this guard, I wrap my fingers in there, and I have got excellent use of this knife to do very fine work in the kitchen. And I like cooking, so I do a lot of stuff with cooking, and having a good knife to use in the kitchen is really important. And I would have no problem using this even at home in the kitchen, let alone out in the field. But out in the field, it dominates that situation very well. So very good. Doesn't have a 90-degree spine. It's a nice rounded spine, so it's comfortable. You have a distal taper to the point. It's about a 1/4 inch thick at the bolster here. Bolster to pommel, it's 5 inches. It's an oval shape, not round, but oval shape handle in wood with horn spacers and copper ring spacers. Steel pins and one brass pin. The brass pin's going to go away like I mentioned. It has a lanyard hole. You have a steel pommel that is flat. I was just earlier today helping my wife put in a stake for a tree that we needed to support, and I used this and I pounded that into the ground, and I used it, and I had great control. I didn't feel like it was unwieldy or that I was going to miss the stake and stab myself with a stake or something. I was able to meet my target very well, and I did a great job getting it into the soil that we needed it to go to. So It is a functional aspect of this knife. It helps balance a knife, but it is solid and you can pound with it no problem. So very, very good. Very well thought out design. Form follows function very well, and it is sharpened right to this point where you still have that same feature that I mentioned with Snyder's knife if you had to use this as a defensive tool, but that's not the main purpose of this knife. It is designed to be a camp knife. So for your feathers, it will work very, very well in drawing your material and creating your feathers right in that spot there. And you'll be able it functions, it works. And as you can see, okay? So my hand's cramped a little bit there, so bear with me. Now another really nice design feature that Daniel always thinks about is the entire package. He thinks about the scabbard, who's going to carry this, and he makes it ambidextrous. So what that means is it has a frog. Military frogs were designed to have your tool on your belt, being able to put and hold it and carry it, and then remove it when necessary without removing the frog. That's the function and purpose of a military frog. It has a military frog here. It has a double thick leather. You have a pouch in the back that is securely carrying your chakmak. Now this chakmak is a 1/4 inch solid steel, 5160. Good point. Allows for you to create a bow drill divot. 90-degree spine for throwing sparks off a ferro rod or a river rock. And it has an integrated bottle opener that works. I've actually cracked open a few brews with this. I like it. So it does function in that way. And it also will do what a chakmak is supposed to do in reprofiling blade out in the field if you should get a rolled edge. Now, it comes with a tender pouch in the front. This one's a bit stiff. This is another aspect that we are going to fix, that we're going to soften this leather. If it comes like this and it's stiff, you ever get one that has a tender pouch with a stiff pouch, just oil it, put a lot of oil and work it with your hand, and it will soften up and become very useful. But we're going to see if we can upgrade this a little bit since this is the prototype. But it has the design with Daniel's logo on both sides, so no one has to sacrifice anything for being left-handed or right-handed, and it allows for both carries. So excellent form follows function in every detail and aspect of this knife. I really, really have fallen in love with this knife. I think it's a great tool, a great camp tool, and I wouldn't mind carrying this at all. Now, some other knives that are similar based off of a kukri. This one, like I mentioned before, was Gary Cox. This is his design. It's kind of like a kopis. Now you have this curve. It's more straight than physically designed like a kukri, where your point's going to be more forward heavy. This one is more straight, but you have the chopping belly here. Again, you have a swedge up at the top, not sharpened. Sharpened here at like a low saber grind, and then you have a higher saber grind here that's slightly hollow forged, and it is sharp all the way to this point, so you have some of the same features that the Snyder knife has, but it also has the same features where it allows you to get in and do your feather sticks here as well. It's more curved, so its function for draw cuts and doing planing is not going to be as useful as the other knives that I've shown. But again, this is showing where the concept, the idea that Tom Brown and Dave Beck came up with is here to stay, and other designers are implementing and using it in their blades. Another one, this is put out by CFK, their division called IPAC. They're located in Oregon. This was probably a prototype, I imagine, that they sold. I bought it from somebody on eBay. It has their logo on it. Again, showing that kopis or kukri style. You have your chopping area, then you have your beveled area here for your detail work. Now this one, I think he didn't fully understand this part of the blade. If he would have understood it a little bit better, he probably would have continued the sharpening all the way. Because using it in this way, you could, it still works, and maybe he thought it didn't work as well, where if he would have done it this way, this unsharpened area right here helps as a guide to place your stick against and pull. So it does have function. It does work. But he changed it a bit, unlike the other ones. This one would give you that slice cut aspect, but this part's not sharpened, so it's more of a grappling aspect in a defensive way. Okay, but this is not really designed as a defensive tool necessarily. It's more of a large camp knife. But again, showing that design and how it's now picked up and taken its own inertia, and a lot of designers are now implementing them, using them. Now, this one was a prototype, but they make a lot of knives like this on CFK and IPAC. Both of these guys, both, it's owned by the same people, but they have different branding. Both brands will have these type of shape design blades. They'll vary. They'll be sometimes a kukri, sometimes more like the Trekker, but he'll do variations of that design, and you can find him on Amazon. Now, last one I'm going to show you that has a unique and similar, shows that they've taken the concept, but they've carried it a little differently. This is a kukri shape made by Fox Knives, which is an Italian company. This is very kukri-like. It's very much like it. They do a version where it's straight, and then has like a tanto tip on it. Now, that one is more accentuating these grinds than this one does. But this one does have a change in bevel, in that you have a very high flat grind that goes here where the belly is and the tip, and then you have more of the saber grind up here. But you still have that continuous curve like a kukri, so you get all the kukri aspects. But I don't think this one is, for doing your whittling and everything, they changed the grind to facilitate that. So form falls function pretty well with that. And this area for chopping, it does chop very good. It's just some of the change in bevel I don't think is as necessary for the shape of the kukri to function as a kukri does. It already facilitates all those features very well. And you have a variety of different, some of them will have a saber or a scanty grind, some will have a flat grind going all the way down. But the curve itself lends to all of these features that these other knives are trying to implement. The only difference with this is if you're going to do a plane cut, your plane cut will be right in this area and not in this area. So you would take it and draw your knife this way for that with a kukri. But that kind of gives you an idea of the Tom Brown and Dave Beck design and how the life it's taken of its own. Now I'll kind of go over a little bit of price points and then conclude. Like I said, with the Bark River Trekker, when it does come out, and right now they're taking pre-orders on Knife Ship Freeze and DLT Trading Company is also taking pre-orders for this. Right now, Bark Rivers is closed. They're only making masks and emergency things to help emergency personnel during this time of crisis of the pandemic. But once they get back into the shop with their employees, they will start making their blades. And this is on their list of doing a new run on this. So if this is something that interests you, you can pre-order it, like I said, at those two sites, and it'll range between around $300 to $400. This one is in the mid-100 range, so in other words, it'll be like $150 on Amazon. with fox knives. Um, you could find different patterns of this at different prices, ranging anywhere from $79 on up to $150, made on Amazon by iPack and CFK. And caulks, I've only been able to find them on eBay, and you can bid on them. Sometimes you can get them under $100. It's hard to say. But their designs are always changing, and you might see this pattern come back. The EJ Snyder, this one will sell for about $310 on Top site, and about $300 on Amazon. And they also make a smaller version of this known as the Skull Crusher Extreme Sidekick, and that one's a bit smaller, and that one sells for about $200 on Top's website, and probably about the same on Amazon. And as far as the Guardian that Daniel Murray Lake has designed, we have not set a price yet, but my goal is to aim in roughly around the $150 range. We'll try to keep it even lower if we can. So stay tuned. Look up my website for when this knife gets rolled out, and of course I will be making a video when it does and telling you all about it. But if you'd like to stay in tune with this and you want to know when we're going to run out, and you want to message me, you can always find me on Facebook at Blue Dragonfly Trading Post. You can message me there. Please like and subscribe on my website, and you can also message me there, and you'll get updates on more videos that I come out with, especially if you hit the bell, and you'll see every time I make a video and when it comes out. Also visit my website, see the cookeries and knives that we have there. They're all handmade, as this one, handmade in Nepal. This one is designed by Daniel Murray Lake. It's called the Guardian, and it has been built by Master Kami Raju Baraili in Nepal, who is with Dragonfly Cookery and Knives. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, like I said, and stay home, stay healthy, stay safe. Keep us in your prayers and thoughts. Keep the commies in your thoughts and prayers as well. Thank you very much for watching. God bless and namaste.